From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker.
The playoffs are here for the Tiger Cats. Great to have you with us on Ticats This Week. I'm RJ Broadhead along with Luke Tasker. And Luke, we really haven't talked about it much this season. This is a must-win, though. Last 2 years, we had a lot of discussions over must-wins. I think we agree this is a must-win on Saturday against Montreal.
You can't deny it. Absolutely. You're right. In years past, RJ started calling must-wins in week 4.
Yeah, pretty early.
After an 0-3 start or whatever. But and we went back and forth on what's a must-win. But now you're there. Now it's undeniable. And you're back into the same semifinal matchup that the Ticats have now gotten used to.
Yeah, 3 straight years where they play Montreal in the East semifinal, back-to-back years where it will take place in Montreal. And Tiger Cats would like to have another date with the Argos, but it won't be easy because Montreal has really dominated the 3 games. Ticats have had a lead in all 3 games, but Montreal has wound up winning all 3 games. And if you go back to the East semifinal last year, Montreal's won 6 in a row against the Tiger Cats. So that's a pretty long streak. To win 7 in a row against a team is pretty impressive. Don't you think that luck has to end at some point, and maybe it's Saturday?
It's possible. I remember June Jones in 2018. I remember saying, well, no team's ever going to beat another team 4 times. So, meaning we were destined to beat Ottawa that year, who was 3 and who, we were 0-3 against. And sure enough, Ottawa went 4-0 against us that year. So sometimes streaks do continue. But the Ticats, you're right, it's not, especially in this past game, the Ticat defense was particularly, I'll say, dominant at times. And if you can kind of get the offense and special teams to have a little bit more production, you really don't have to. You're not going to play a perfect game, but if you can get maybe a winning performance in 2 of the 3 teams, the Ticats have a chance to do it.
If you're watching on YouTube or watching the video of Ticats This Week, my dog Houston just made a quick appearance. He never misses an episode, Luke. It's his favorite time of the week. He's a loyal Ticats This Week listener on the Ticats Audio Network. You mentioned last week's game. How much weight do you put into last week's game?
Well, I don't know. Sitting here right now, for some reason, RJ, I'm happy that the Ticats went there last week. I guess for some reason I feel a little bit more confidence having just played Montreal. It's almost like as a player you kind of think it's very clear, like the concept of if just this and this will go differently for us, if we can have not one less turnover here and one more takeaway here, that same exact game would turn into a win for the Ticats. Like, I don't know, it's very tangible, it's very fresh in your mind what you have to do to overcome the mistakes and the bad play that led to the loss in the last regular season game. And you just go right back out to the same stadium, same locker room. I feel good about it. Even though the game was a loss in Montreal and not certainly offensively, not a good Ticat performance, but I still think just having come fresh out of Montreal as a player, I think I'd be feeling ready to go back there and kind of very clear-sighted on what we have to do.
Yeah, It didn't feel like it was a dominant effort from Montreal. In fact, Ticats have lost 2 in a row going into this East semifinal by a total of 5 points. So 2 very close games to end the season that came right down to the wire. Montreal comes into the playoffs as the hottest team in the CFL, 5 straight wins. If you remember back to last year, Hamilton was the hottest team going into the playoffs, and it didn't get them anywhere. So maybe that hot streak does come to an end. There's a big topic we have to talk about, Luke, and we discussed it a little bit after the final regular season game, who the Tiger Cats starting quarterback would be in the East semifinal. They started 3 different quarterbacks against Montreal this season. It's going to be Matt Shiltz. Were you surprised when you saw that Matt Shiltz will be the starting quarterback for the Tiger Cats in the playoffs?
Well, I was sort of ready to be surprised, which is sort of a contradiction in itself, I guess. But I guess, in a sense, yes. I mean, what everyone expected for this year to look like with Bo Levi-Mitchell, that was all changed with injuries. And since Bo has come back healthy, there's been a lack of consistency. And I think Matt Shiltz, there's a couple things that he offers. First of all, it's movement in the pocket. And if you watch the first half of this last game against Montreal a week ago, Bo was under a great deal of pressure in that first half. Interestingly, I thought he actually escaped it pretty well. He moved in the pocket and got out of there, and he handled it fine. But Shiltz is truly a guy who can escape and get a first down for you. And that changes that'll change the feeling of a game. So I think that's one thing that Matt Shiltz absolutely has an advantage there. And when it comes right down to it, it's do or die. And there's a confidence thing in both the health and the ability of both of those guys to get it done. And that doesn't really surprise me that it ended up settling on Matt.
Yeah, I'm with you, Luke. I was kind of expecting that it would be Matt Shiltz, or at least Matt Shiltz would see some action. It sounds like both quarterbacks might see some action, and that's kind of worked for the Tiger Cats down the stretch here too, where they've mixed in both quarterbacks in a game. It seems to have been effective. It's like even back to 2019, it's 4 seasons where there's been some sort of balance in the quarterback position. Oftentimes it's been necessity from injury. And there has been some times where it's not been that, where it's been strategic or part of the game plan. And I was a part of teams where it did work, where 2 guys were successful. We'll see. And I think it's going to depend on how Matt Shiltz goes in there and how the first half looks as well. I think, to me, RJ, you can boil this down pretty simply. And the part that gives me pause is that it was a tough offensive first half a week ago in Montreal. It really was. One first down.
Exactly. 1 first down, very poor efficiency, but I just don't put it all on Bo. I thought he actually moved in the pocket, not running for first downs, but buying himself time when it disappeared very quickly. And then there was drops that just killed me to watch, multiple drops down the field that would have been first downs, maybe more. And then that pressure. So it's hard. It was almost like not a fair test, right? Like you couldn't really see what actually how Bo was performing. He did as good as maybe he could with what he was given, kind of thing. But that aside, because that does give me a little bit of pause. That aside, this is what it boils down to. Bo Levi Mitchell has 10 interceptions thrown this year, and Matt Shiltz has 5 interceptions. Matt Shiltz has 7 touchdowns thrown. I think Bo has 4 touchdowns thrown on the season. So you got to stop turning the ball over against Montreal. So it's like whatever you got to do, if you just can't turn the ball over. Like you can't overstate how costly it is to throw an interception, and it just takes away all the potential energy of your team. It doesn't matter how many good plays you have, how many players are ready to make a play. If the ball's not yours anymore, it doesn't matter. And so I think there's been an issue with Bo this year with turnovers, and that almost alone, I did, like I said, Matt Shiltz has an ability to get a first down on his legs, and that's huge. But the turnovers almost by themselves are enough to say, Matt Shiltz, you're doing a better job of protecting the football, and we're going to give you a shot. And they've been a big story against Montreal. I want to talk more turnovers in a moment. I just want to throw out maybe one of the factors that played in the decision and get your opinion on it on starting Matt Shiltz. He played with Montreal. He's been with the Tiger Cats past couple of seasons, but he is very familiar with Molson Percival Stadium. Do you think that was part of the factor in starting him? Because Bo played with Calgary. He did play in Montreal, but not a lot. Yeah. I would say that it is maybe icing on the cake. Like, I don't think that's one of the ingredients that goes into the decision-making process, but now that the decision's made, it's also kind of like, well, and this is also, there's a little bit more good news that, Shiltz knows this. He may just have a good, comfortable feeling, in this building. And so, I think that it certainly helps. So turnovers, you talked about it, Luke, and it has been huge when you see it on paper between these two teams. I've got them, Hamilton 14 turnovers compared to Montreal's 4. I know in the CF statistics they had 13-4, but I can trust account for all 14 RJ Broadhead's note-taking process during a game and his iPad. You wouldn't believe the stats that he can pull up right off the top of his head. Not to mention, Jeff Girodat's been with us for most of the season, the statistician wizard. So I trust RJ's turnover number there.
Well, thank you, Luke. And Jeff's already sent me the officials for the game, so we'll have that. Jeff's busy producing NHL hockey, so we lose him for the playoffs. But Luke and I are trying to be self-sufficient. We'll have lots of good stuff for you. 14-4. Let's go with that for the turnovers in 3 games. That's
negative 10 ratio in 3 games for the Ticats.
Yeah, that's a recipe for not winning. And you said it has to change. Is that more the Tiger Cats taking the ball away? They've only managed to do it 4 times, or is that just basically do not turn it over no matter what?
Yeah, that's funny that I'm always thinking about turnovers in a bad way, like in that because the offense gives the ball away, but a defensive mindset is that is to take the ball away, and it's both sides, revenue and expenses. Like you got to make both things work for you. Like the problem to me starts with the offense and the protecting the football. It's like it's the core of a football team. You talk about it on the first day of training camp. You protect the ball, at all costs. I mean, it's your job. You're carrying the team on your back when you have the football. That kind of language gets used with that. And defensively and special teams, Jeff Reinbold is an excellent teacher of the importance of ball security and also how to get the ball away. The language of bring the hatchet in at the tackle when the hand is up way above your own helmet and you see those guys coming in. Oftentimes it's a second man in on a tackle and a full punch, like a haymaker to the football, or like we say, a hatchet. That stuff is language of special teams and defense and can is obviously equally as important. But you've got a really good defense in Montreal, and an offense that struggled. And like you said, so negative 10 ratio in over 3 games with Montreal. The Ticats are negative 4 on the season. So you do the math. They have a +6 ratio on the season against non-Montreal teams. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really telling.
Yeah, so that's been a big key for Montreal, and the Tiger Cats can be in control of taking that away. Just to break down, 6 interceptions thrown by the Tiger Cats against Montreal. Matt Schultz threw 2 in the first meeting. Taylor Powell threw the other 4. 3 fumbles against Montreal. 2 of them came in the last game, and 5 times the Tiger Cats have turned it over on downs against Montreal. Tiger Cats, 2 interceptions against the Alouettes this season, both by Richard Leonard. Kind of interesting he didn't play in the final game of the regular season, whether that's to, keep them out of their minds a little bit, but he definitely has had some success against the Alouettes, so that'll be fun to watch. And I want to follow up on what you said about Montreal's defense. It has been really, really good. I base it on touchdowns. Let's start there. So touchdowns, the Tiger Cats have only managed to score 3 touchdowns in 3 games against Montreal this season. None of them passing. A rush of 4 yards by James Butler, a rush of 5 yards by Sean Thomas Erlington, and then Tyreek McAllister's 122-yard field goal miss return for a touchdown. Tiger Cats don't have a passing touchdown, and only 3 touchdowns in 3 games against Montreal. That's something that they have to fix too come Saturday.
It is, and you mentioned the 1 first down in the first half of the whole game. The flip side of that also is that Montreal had 1 second down conversion in the entire game. As we were talking in the Coach O show with Luke Tasker, and that's a groundbreaking stat. It's 7% conversion ratio across all yardages. I mean, the Ticat defense played a game that deserves a win. And that brings me back to the idea that these problems we're talking about with score zone efficiency offensively with the offense and turnovers, it's still an imperfect game can still get it done if the defense plays the way that they've been playing. And so a little bit of production, even a little bit of a better job of controlling the clock in the field, it can go a long way with a defense like what the Ticats have right now. Leads me to another point is the special teams and some interesting things that we've got going on there. You saw a wonderfully executed not a fake punt, I guess. What's the name for the
dribble
dink punt?
They're kind of calling it a dribble punt.
Yeah, the opposite of a fake punt, a fake second down, and then an onside punt. That was wonderfully executed by Montreal, and you got to be ready for that exact play for sure, and also other sort of tricks like that, onside field goals, onside punts, things of that nature. But in the standard punting match as well, Montreal does an excellent job of flipping the field and of pinning returners in the punt game. You saw a whole midsection of that last game really controlled by the punters and by the field position battle there. And so you've got to be able to control both their return game and try to get some ground gained in the punt return game.
Well, it's interesting you brought up special teams. Just for any of our people listening to Ticats this week, they're like, okay, Ticats had 3 touchdowns in 3 games. How many did Montreal have? Well, they had 9. So an average of 3 touchdowns a game. And they also scored, of course, on offense, defense, and special teams. Tiger Cats allowed 2 punt return touchdowns this season. They've been very good at avoiding explosive plays on the punt return. But 2 punt return touchdowns this season, both by Montreal. So that has to be something that they are working on going into Saturday, too.
Yes, it does. And punt coverage, the punt coverage team, it's two parts. All those guys have to run down there with their hair on fire and stay within their responsibilities of that coverage scheme. For instance, there's somebody on every play who has to keep every single player on the field on their right shoulder, and somebody who has to keep every player on the field on their left shoulder, and everybody in between has a responsibility as well. They've got to execute that. But it also starts with the kick, and I think that's what Montreal just does. It's unbelievable. Every kick is bombed, and it's at the numbers or outside, and that takes away so much space, so much opportunity for a returner if you've pinned him to the sidelines. And so, you've got to corral that, because that's a play like a turnover, a punt, a special teams touchdown breaks the game open, very similar to the way an interception or a turnover does.
Yeah, Tiger Cats, I mentioned it earlier, they've led in all 3 games. They've led 2 times in the 3 games going into the fourth quarter and haven't been able to hold on to those leads. They'll have to do it. But Cody Fajardo, we talked about the Tiger Cats quarterbacks. Fajardo has just 1 playoff win in his career. That came back in 2021. So it's not like he's breaking any records there. To me, when you look at the numbers and you look at the matchup and the success that Montreal has had this year, it comes down to, if Hamilton's going to win, they have to be able to move the ball on offense against this Montreal defense, which really seems like it's Montreal's strength.
It is, yeah. And they're tough. I mean, good defenses, it's not, they have an answer both on the ground and through the air, and Montreal certainly has that. And it starts with their front 4. Their pressure is disruptive. I think you got to see some quick answers for Matt Schultz. I hope that we can see the ball get out of his hand pretty quickly. And you saw Scott Miladovich taking shots down the field. And I really want to see a great playoff game from this Ticat receiving core. I want to see the big plays made. Love to see Tim White with some production. He's had an unbelievable season, unbelievable second half of the season as he's geared up for playoffs. He was not in the lineup for this last game in Montreal. And I think, if you can balance some quick answers with those shots downfield and the receivers giving a chance to make plays, you're going to get some of them.
Tim White, East Division All-Star, along with Casey Sales and Brandon Revenberg. I want to touch on the kicking game too, Luke, because you were a holder for a lot of years. It plays a factor in the playoffs. Mark Leggio comes in. He's hit his last 12 in a row. He's on a nice little heater right now. David Cote's missed 4 field goals in 3 games against the Tiger Cats. So going in, it's probably Tiger Cats feeling a little better with their kicking game, but you can throw all that out the window, I guess, in the playoffs. And Cote's a veteran guy. He's been around, and he's been able to do it in the postseason. Do you think statistics like that going into the game might affect coaching decisions?
Yeah, I think sometimes they will, and the confidence in a kicker and the confidence of a kicker as they go into the game, it makes me think, you get to a certain sort of a challenging field goal yardage, and it makes me alert for fakes and trick field goals, onside field goals, and motioning people out of the formation. And I think you got to be alert for that in the playoffs. It tends to be a time where I think you maybe find some boldness in coordinators who want to, don't want to leave anything in the chamber. They're going to take every single chance they can to try to change the game. And so I think certainly if it's not a slam dunk with a field goal, you kind of have that ready as well. And on the flip side of that, Legio, you're right. It kind of seems there was a section in the season here where, it was a little shaky. There's a couple misses back to back, and he's kind of got a nice streak going right now. You never know. That can be game changing, and we'll see what the weather looks like in Montreal and the wind, and that's always an exciting part of it as well, specific to the kicking game.
Yeah, absolutely. In the 3 games, Tiger Cats have not scored over 20 points. So there's another check mark for the Montreal defense. If the Tiger Cats can find a way on offense to move the football, Tiger Cats defense has had success in stopping Montreal for the most part. Going into this game, Luke, what are you looking for some keys for the Tiger Cats to advance to the East Final?
Well, we mentioned it a few times now. Got to see a good connection between this receiving core at large and Matt Schultz. And we'll see if Bo has some time in the game as well. But I think there's a tendency always to force the issue sometimes, especially in the playoffs, especially when things aren't going well offensively. And what I mean by that is forcing throws where they don't belong, or without the time and space to make the completion. And so Matt Schultz, he's a veteran. He knows these things. He knows all that, but you still got to overcome the desire in the moment to force some things. You've got to let the game come to you, but his legs are going to help. I'm excited to see how he manages these drives and moves the ball down the field. And I'm excited to watch these Ticat receivers make a few plays.
And just a totally irrelevant stat as my dog Houston stretches right near me again. 3 games, Tiger Cats have worn black and gold twice, white and gold once. Do you think they avoid the gold pants in this game? They've lost 3 times against Montreal in the gold pants.
Good point. I bet you they do. I bet we see black pants, white tops in Montreal.
Okay, well, Ticats this week, we appreciate you listening. We're hoping we have another episode next week when the East Final takes place, but one step at a time. The East Final against Montreal on Saturday. Luke, can't wait to see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's playoff time. So many ups and downs through the regular season. But It comes down to this one game.
I can't wait, RJ. I'll see you up there.
So it's a 3:00 kickoff. Keep that in mind. If you can't make it to Montreal, please listen on the Ticats Audio Network. Andy Fantus and Bubba O'Neill will have the pregame show at 2:00. Luke and I will be on with the play-by-play at 3.
It's been another busy week for your Hamilton Tiger Cats. Luke Tasker and RJ Broadhead have covered it all, and now we would like to hear from you. Email us anytime at gameday@ticats.ca. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.